What is going on, guys? Good morning. I hope you are having a wonderful start to the morning, to the evening, to the afternoon, and whatever it is for you, you beautiful humans. We are going to be ripping into another episode of the podcast. And looking forward to delivering you guys some value. So if you're coming into this one live, you know what to do. You get down into the comments, you let us know you're here, and we're going to rip into this episode in 2 minutes. We're going to be talking about fat loss. It's our favorite topic here at the Better Body Academy podcast, where we talk about all things nutrition, training, everything. So, guys, if you're coming into this one, rip down into the comments, let us know that you're here. We're going to be starting this in 2 minutes. Slightly different timing today, but just decided we're going to get stuck into something a little bit new. So, if you watch this on replay, babes and babettes, make sure that you hashtag replay in the comments, because this is the best way to make sure that you get value. Also, when you hashtag replay, what it does for everyone else is it bumps it up in the algorithm, so everyone else in the group gets to see it. How, Babe? What's going on, babe? Guys, in ultimately talking about fat loss supplements that work. So you know the drill. If you're coming in here, you must have a day off. What's for you in NZ? Okay, so team, we're going to get started in 30 seconds. So it looks like we might have a minor glitch. 2 seconds, team. All right. I don't know if you guys lost me there for a second. I could just see that my internet decided to play up for a second. So just let us know that you're back here, and I'll kick the episode off, guys. Let us know that we're all good, and we'll kick the episode off. I can see that the internet just decided to chunk out for a second. Hey, Rach. Hey, Jules. I hope you're good. Are we good? Hey, Dano. What's going on, mate? Are we live, guys? Let us know. We're good. Just give us a holler in the comments. Oh, hi. Yep, glitchy, Jace. Yeah, it should be back to normal now, Carls. Can you just give me a confirmation that we're good? If not, I can refresh the. All good. Thanks, Deb. I appreciate you. Look, sometimes technology does some weird shit, guys. So if for any reason this one cuts out, I can re-record it as the audio and then post it into the group again. Thought it was my internet. Nah, Carl's, it's not. It's not, mate. Okay, I think we're good and ready to rock and roll. All good now. Thanks, Rach. Love it. All right, let's get stuck into this, guys. Thanks for the patience on that little one there. Let's go. I'm going to bring in our Instagram crowd. Okay, on the count of 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Welcome back to the Better Body Academy podcast. This is the podcast that you come to when you're sick of the dumb diets and unsustainable workout programs. And we are well over 360 episodes of the podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about fat loss supplements that actually work. Now, if you're only just coming into the podcast live, you got to make sure on Instagram that you follow so that you get notifications of when the podcast is going live. Let's talk about fat loss supplements. I love walking into places like GNC, and the first thought that I have when I walk in there is go, holy fuck, 99% of this stuff is absolutely useless. It's a shameful thing, but it is what it is. Fat burning supplements are probably the most marketed and targeted supplements. They're also the segment of the market that's probably the most profitable, I would say. The reason that they're most profitable is because they're targeting the exact thing that you want to do, right? Fat burners. So I want you to let me know in the comments, if you're watching this live, what's the funniest fat burner supplement that you've taken? So to start the podcast, I want to go through a couple that I've seen that I think are really, really interesting before we get to the ones that I think we need to focus on. So number one, and these are called thermogenics. Thermogenics are supplements that are said to be heat producing. So in other words, you lose the energy, the calories off your body via heat. So to anyone that's like about my age, right, which is 40, 42, you might remember a supplement called, it was called Hydroxycut. This was a really interesting supplement, and people thought the world, oh my God, it boosts metabolism and it does everything. It did make you a little bit hot, didn't it? Hydroxycut. Hey, one thing that you're going to see with all of these supplements is typically they have either you remember it, Jimmy? Typically they have either a stimulant-based effect or a temporary appetite suppressant effect. And Hydroxycut was one of these. It certainly got you really G'd up, didn't it? Then we have fat mobilizers. Now, these are, you might have heard of ones like L-carnitine, for example. The idea is that they help the mitochondria, which are the tiny little cells, transport fat so it can be burnt. The problem is that is only true when you are in a calorie deficit and in the position where the fat actually needs to be mobilized. And then we've had the category of like ones that are kind of really appetite suppressing. That's the claim. The one that kind of comes to mind is Garcinia cambogia. And the idea was that it would suppress your appetite enough so that you'd stop eating calories. The problem is that, suppressing your appetite with a herb doesn't last. It's not like something like a GLP-1, right? So what ends up happening is you suppress your appetite temporarily, and then what would happen is that you'd overreach on the next meal, which actually is what a lot of people struggle with fasting, right? So if you are someone that fasts, people constantly ask us in our trainings, does fasting work? Well, fasting can work if it leads to a calorie deficit overall in your day. But if all fasting does is make you really fucking hungry, so you just want to overeat at the next meal, then it definitely doesn't work. And then we get into the ones that are like proper weird. Like, for example, supplements that claim to lead to fat loss in a calorie surplus. Now, I'm hearing the keto crowd that are particularly on these ones. Raspberry ketos, lose weight without dieting. Unfortunately, guys, you're not going to lose any body fat at all if you're not in a position whereby the calories that you're taking in is exceeding the calories that you're burning up. You would be defying the law of physics for that to actually happen. And what about the detox teas? Maybe we'd call them like placebo-based supplements. Who, honestly, of you ladies that are watching on live particularly, right, who was like a detox tea girl? You know, the ones that like, hey, they'll flatten your stomach, right? You remember that? Guys, the way they flatten your fucking stomach is by giving you diarrhea. And what ends up happening is, yes, you poo it all out and you jump on the scales and you go, wonderful, I lost weight. Because you just basically poured out a couple of liters of fluid out of your bowels. That's how they work. There are a category of supplements called, I guess you'd call them like, they actually can work, but they're examples of fat burners that are based around a compound called ephedra, right? And basically what it does, kind of like adrenaline, just gets you super riled up. These are pretty much banned in most cases now, in most countries now. And the reason is because kind of like having 15 Red Bulls at once, there are some heart benefits, heart issues that come with doing that, right? When you're just like taking crazy amounts of stimulant, do you think that would be very good for you? Would it get you to move more? Yes. Would it make you more motivated? Probably. But the short and long-term consequences, not so great. So now we've talked about this kind of this list of supplements that, don't work and haven't worked over the long term simply because they don't obey what's called the law of thermodynamics. This is talking about calorie balance. Let's go to perhaps 3 or 4 supplements that are supported very well by the science. I'm going to give you the reason that it's supported well by the science, and it's going to be that either they help suppress your appetite or they help improve your metabolism, generally speaking, by building muscle mass. Now, I also want to point out that if you are taking these supplements that I'm about to go through, and at the same time, you are taking these supplements and you are eating in a calorie surplus relative to the amount of calories that you're burning, guess what? You're not going to lose fat. You might actually indirectly build some strength, which should be the goal, and long term, you might lead to fat loss. That's how to use these supplements correctly. So let's go through them. I'm interested in, if you're watching on live, what do you think the supplements are going to be? Before I start going through the list, what do you think the supplements are going to be? Number 1 is protein powder. I mean, for me, I don't even consider protein powder a supplement. I consider protein powder a food. Why? Well, it's not something that is like, it's like crazy chemically, it's effectively a byproduct of production of cheese. So we shoot out some kind of byproducts, right? One of them is a fraction of protein called whey, W-H-E-Y. And this is a very, very good supplement that I think most people should be taking. And before you say that, yeah, but I don't want to build muscle, I want to lose fat, it's even more important for you to be taking whey protein. The reason for this is that whey protein, like all proteins, helps to keep you fuller. When you are fuller from eating a higher protein diet, you don't go through these periods of up and down blood sugar because you're more satiated. So what ends up happening is you don't snack so much on high calorie foods in between. So number 1 is protein. The second part about protein, which you guys know, is that as well as filling you up, it also helps to provide the building blocks to help you build muscle. I'm going to say this till I'm black and blue in the face. If you're 30, 40, 50, 60 years old, your biggest focus should be to build muscle. Your biggest focus should be to build strength. If you can focus on building strength and muscle, guess what? You're going to end up improving your metabolism and therefore losing fat. I need you to hear me on this, guys. You can always go and do more cardio. You can always jump on a treadmill. You can always cut your calories right down, like shrink your calories right down. What's going to end up happening here? When you do this, you're going to become reliant on the cardio, and the moment you actually stop doing it, the benefits are going to go. The second thing is, eventually your body is going to say, all right, you're at 1,400 or 1,200 calories. Now what are you going to do? So it's a race to the bottom. So when you keep using nutritional reduction of calories constantly and pair that with increased cardio, essentially the two are coming further apart and you're making things more and more and more difficult. When you supplement with protein powder, you're helping to satiate you, which is good, but you're building muscle, which is great. This is the long-term solution. Let's talk about number 2. This is caffeine, okay? What is it about caffeine that works? Like, why would you bother taking caffeine? Well, if you're like most people, you start the morning with a cup of coffee, and it's a good thing, right? Now, some people, like if you listen to Andrew Huberman, uh, very famous scientist, they'll say, "Oh no, you shouldn't do caffeine in the morning because it's going to get you off to the wrong start." Look, for me, the benefits outweigh the cons. For me, taking coffee in the morning helps me with my uh, motivation to work. There's something about it which is what's the word? Comforting for me. It sets the tone for my day. It's the kickstart that I'm looking for in the morning to get into work mode. Now, the challenge with caffeine is what? You adapt to it, right? So me personally, I can have 5 of these cups of coffee a day and the effect is minimal. So if you're looking for the boost in motivation, what you can do is try to use it sparingly, almost like as a pre-workout, if you will. People say all the time, should I take pre-workouts? I don't, but what I do is I have a coffee before my workout. So most pre-workouts just contain a shit ton of caffeine or some form of stimulant. So for me, if you have the ability to kind of grade down your caffeine intake, but then use it in a targeted way, this is an amazing way to boost your motivation. And then, of course, it suppresses your appetite a little bit. Nothing like these crazy, stimulants like we've talked about before. Number 3. Now, I personally have taken this from time to time, but I feel very lucky that I'm able to handle stress pretty well. The third supplement that's recommended is ashwagandha. This is a herb that has had some very positive links between ashwagandha, taking supplement, and managing stress. Okay? How it does that needs to be a bit cleared up, but it seems to be in some way it reduces the impact of cortisol, right? Which is pretty well known as the stress hormone. Okay. So if we can take some ashwagandha, particularly maybe before bed, it might help us get to and stay asleep, but it might also dial down that cortisol. And the cortisol is the stress hormone that is typically associated with fat storage and promotion of fat. You've got these kind of cravings that are constantly happening, and you know what it's like when you're in that kind of stressful period of your life and you're not sleeping. Part of the reason is the very high cortisol levels, and so ashwagandha has seen a positive link. Now, we've done 360 episodes of this podcast, so Deborah Hoberg, shout out to you. You are absolutely right. The fourth supplement that everyone, in my opinion, should be absolutely taking is creatine, and specifically creatine monohydrate. This is the cheapest form of the supplement. Look, here's the thing. On a base level, the way that creatine is so beneficial right across the board, you might be like, how can it have all these benefits, from strength gain to fat loss to mental health benefits to prevention of possible degeneration of the mind and brain? Like, how is that actually possible? Well, here's how. You already have creatine in your body. Now, the stores of creatine deplete quite quickly. Secondly, every time you eat meat, you eat creatine, right? Which makes sense, because if humans have creatine in them already and it's stored in their muscles, well, then of course, if you eat an animal, it's also going to contain creatine. So if you eat it, you get the creatine as well, right? The challenge with it is, number one, is that creatine stores in the body run out quite quickly. And creatine at its very core is effectively an energy source, okay? Particularly for quite intense activities like lifting weights. They run out quite quickly, and the amounts of creatine that are found in food, like meat, are still not huge. Certainly nothing close to what you can get by supplementing with a teaspoon or 2 of creatine over the course of a day, before you work out, after you work out, it really, really doesn't matter. Me personally, I take about 8 to 10 grams of creatine per day. I start the morning, I wake up. The first thing that I do before a coffee, I get a big ass cup of water. I throw a couple of heaped teaspoons of creatine in it, literally stir it once, and then gulp it down, and that's it. I usually take it with a multivitamin, only as an insurance policy. But what I definitely notice is, typically the clients that are consistent with creatine over a long period of time will see increases in strength gains, therefore coming off the back of increases in muscle gains, reductions in fat loss, which overall leads to a better position calorie wise. Because if you are using supplements like protein, a high protein diet to suppress your appetite, and it's being at the same time combined with an increase in your metabolism overall, it helps you to create a more favorable metabolic position. Now, to wind the podcast out, what I would really say is, despite the title of this podcast, which is 4 fat loss supplements that actually work, I want you to know that it doesn't matter if you take these supplements. If you are trying to lose fat and your calorie intake far exceeds what you're burning, which, by the way, is predominantly determined by the strength of your metabolism, what's going to end up happening? You're never going to change. You're going to look the same. That's the facts of it. People don't like hearing this, but calorie balance determines whether or not you lose weight. The answer is not just to eat less, which is what everyone thinks. The answer, long term, is to build a bigger machine. When you build muscle as a man or a woman, even small amounts of 1 pound to 2 pounds to 3 pounds, it has a positive impact on your metabolism. And what ends up happening is, over time, because you've got this lift in your metabolism, you're just burning more calories than the average person that's on the treadmill trying to run the calories off, but with a really slow metabolism. So if you want to go on holidays and feel amazing, if you want to be able to have some downtime on the weekend where you do get to eat some of the foods you like and you want a more balanced overall life, you want the long-term solution to the core problem, it's about building a bigger machine. And we will repeat this till we're black and blue in the face. So for you guys that haven't taken up strength training, combining it with a high protein diet, number one, certainly creatine supplementation is a good idea. Filling yourselves up with satiating food and then using these 3 to 4 supplements as the little cherry on top. This is what works. I was looking at our client Facebook group, and one of my new clients, Shari, what a legend. He just put up on the group, who would have thought that within 2 weeks I could lose, it was like 3 or 4 centimeters off my guts already. And he's not an overweight guy. This is a guy that was training 5 or 6 days a week, trying to run at the same time, who has Crohn's disease, eating a fucking 1,400 calorie diet, spinning his wheels, getting nowhere. We halved his workouts, stopped him from doing cardio, fed him more calories, and told him to take a fucking chill pill, and all of a sudden the weight starts coming off. Guys, it's probably a little bit simpler than you think. So, team, that's a wrap from me. This has been the Better Body Academy podcast, coming to you to start out our week nice. Hopefully it was helpful. If you've got any questions, I'm happy to stick around and answer the questions. We will chat soon. All right, so let's go, girls and guys. For those of you that are still watching, if you have any questions, then bang them in the comments. Happy to answer. I saw a question, Rach Applegate. What even is creatine? Great question, Rach. So basically what creatine is effectively like an amino acid that it's found naturally in animal product, right? So it's not as if it's like some crazy like steroid or something like that. On a base level, I don't want to kind of complicate it too much because it's harder to explain, but on a base level, it is a source of energy that is used by our cells. So when we have sugar, for example, or carbohydrates come in, they get broken down and broken down and broken down and broken down, and they get turned into essentially an energy source that, paired with creatine, is the fuel for really high intensity activities. Okay. So when you're doing something like lifting weights in the gym, it's not as if creatine works like a steroid where you get a 30% increase in your strength. It doesn't work like that. The way it works is it allows you to go a little bit longer in your set. So let's pretend that you're a man or a woman and you're doing a set of squats, and you're currently doing, say, 10 repetitions of whatever weight that you are lifting. Typically what creatine will do is it will help to get out 11, 12, 13 repetitions. Now, because you're doing those extra 3 repetitions that you would have otherwise given up on, that is where the strength gains. You're effectively doing those extra 30% work off the back of taking creatine. Does that make sense? Thanks, Deb. Does that make sense? So that's the basic reason on how it works. It helps to recharge at a base level the cellular energy that you have, so you can just do a little bit more. That's the basics of it. The second thing that creatine actually does is brings water into the cell. Okay, so what that basically means is that you have a muscle cell, right? And it transports water, it pulls water into the actual cell itself, which causes the cell to expand a little bit. Now, when the cell's expanded a little bit, this in itself signals to build or build muscle, right? This is what you want. You don't want a flaccid, dehydrated cell. Okay, so one of the things that can happen, and it's a good thing, not a bad thing, is when you start taking creatine, you might notice a little bit of a bump on the scales, and that's because it's bringing some water in, making the cells of the muscles a little bit more volumed, right? Expanded. And so with that, it's actually a good thing, not a bad thing. People say, oh, creatine caused me water retention. That's good. You want to have water in your cells, particularly if you're, well, how do you think hydration works, right? When you have water in your cells, it blows the cell out, so you don't have as many wrinkles. This is the basics of it. Does that make sense? Ash, when should you take creatine if weight training first thing in the morning? For the most part, right, Ash, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter, to be honest, because once the cell has become saturated, or the muscle cell has become saturated with creatine, well, until you use that creatine on an intense basis, it's kind of saturated to that point, right? So when should you take it? Look, I take it in the morning, but that's more to do with, I'm taking it because I just want to get it done. That's the like tick in the box, done, cool, done. That's the best way to think about it. I think with supplements, like the biggest thing about supplements is the 3 or 4 that actually work, that are actually decent and recommended, they only work if you actually do them. Most people don't do them, and so they're useless, right? Make sense? All right, team. It's a wrap from me. Peace out. Love you guys. See you soon.